Rewind the clock to late 2021. Mark Zuckerberg steps into the spotlight and drops a bombshell on the entire tech industry. "We are rebranding," he declared. "Say goodbye to Facebook. We are Meta now." The man was absolutely convinced he had found the Holy Grail. He was betting the farm, convinced that this metaverse was the inevitable future of human existence on the internet. From this day forward, he said, "We are Metaverse first, not Facebook first." He pivoted a trillion-dollar empire on a single, massive gamble. Cut to the present day. That bet, it has backfired in the most catastrophic way imaginable. He hired an army of 10,000 staff. He incinerated tens of billions of dollars trying to build this digital utopia. And the result? A ghost town. They can barely scrape together 1,000 active users. Even Zuckerberg seems to have quietly ghosted the project. By 2025, the grand metaverse dream is effectively dead in the water. But the numbers don't tell the whole horror story. Dig a little deeper, and it gets darker. We are seeing reports that user safety was thrown out the window to protect the bottom line. Allegations are piling up that these virtual spaces turned into safe havens for predators and toxic, hateful filth. What was sold to us as the future of connection is shaping up to be the single most embarrassing tech failure of the 21st century. To understand the collapse, you have to revisit the origin story, the one everyone thinks they know. 2004, Harvard, a dorm room project. At first, it was an exclusive club for students. By September 2006, it went public. And back then, it felt revolutionary. It wasn't just another website. It was built to hook you, to connect you with real people. By 2007, it had already crushed MySpace to take the crown. Since then, it has been the undisputed king. 1 billion users by 2011, over 3 billion by 2025. That is 50% of the entire internet-using population. But let's be real, they didn't stay on top by being geniuses. When new challengers entered the ring in the early 2010s, Facebook started sweating. The pressure was mounting. These new apps were stealing eyeballs. And for an empire built on attention, that is an existential threat. Zuckerberg didn't bother competing. He just pulled out his checkbook. 2012, he buys Instagram for $1 billion. 2014, he drops a staggering $19 billion to swallow WhatsApp. But that strategy has a ceiling. Not everyone has a price tag. Snapchat famously told Zuckerberg to take a hike when he offered billions. Suddenly, stories popped up on Instagram and Facebook. A shameless, pixel-perfect ripoff of Snapchat's core feature. And the scary part? It worked. Stories blew up on Zuckerberg's platforms. Copy, kill, destroy. It was the perfect playbook. Until September 2017. Enter ByteDance. TikTok didn't care about your social circle. Its algorithm was a mind-reading weapon that prioritized pure content addiction. It fed you a never-ending stream of dopamine hits, tailored perfectly to your attention span. It was an instant cultural phenomenon. Most downloaded app by October 2018, 693 million downloads in 2019 alone. The next year, it surged past 850 million. Leaked audio from internal meetings revealed Zuckerberg was panicking. TikTok is huge, he admitted. It is exploding globally. It is taking over the US market. He saw the writing on the wall. The youth were leaving in droves. India was already lost. They are bigger than Instagram in India now, he noted. So, he tried to run the old play again.